In the previous movie, we have created this CSS grid layout with an image on the left and the overlapped text on the right. If you haven't watched it, I would suggest that you go to the lesson 4.14.1 and watch it first. If you have watched it, then buckle up. We are going to teach this thing some manners and make it behave appropriately on mobile. Okay, time to go into the responsive preview. And let's move from extra large to medium view. Oh my god, chaos! This is where the panic starts. But we can fight panic with knowledge. Let's understand exactly what has happened here. Let's go back to the large view. Click on the grid element and let's add one cell to the top. It is hard to see it because of the background, so let's remove the background for a second. So where was our new cell added? The answer is to the top left position. And why? Let's click on it. You see this? It says auto placement. It means that we haven't specified the coordinates of the cell. So it placed itself to the first available space in the grid element, which is at the top left. What would happen if we add a new cell below all others? Would it appear here? We have two explicitly positioned cells. Let's try. Nope. It will place itself right next to the last automatically placed cell, which is in our case the second column of the first row. So we could keep adding automatically placed cells and they would all wrap around explicitly placed cells. I will delete this second cell. How do we recognize an automatically placed cell? We recognize it by purple color and the border, while we have the layout preview turned on. We will click on it and explicitly say that we want it to span from track 1 to track 2 horizontally and also from track 1 to track 2 vertically. Now it occupies the same place as before, but it is not purple anymore, it is now orange. We can recognize explicitly positioned cells by the orange color. Let's move it into the second column. Here's a question for you. If I add two new cells to the grid, where will they position themselves? And you're absolutely right. The first one will position itself into the top left corner because that's the first available space. The second one is an explicitly positioned orange cell, so the next one I add will position itself to the first available space on the right side of it. So those are the two types of cells. What about these light purple squares with dashed borders? Yes, you're correct. They are nothing but our Photoshop guides, or as we call them here, they are tracks. So to summarize, we need to distinguish three types of squares. Light purple squares with dashed borders are the layout tracks. They are alignment guides to the other two types of squares. The other two types are actual content cells. The orange ones are fixed on the track. They are explicitly positioned by numbers. The purple ones are not fixed and they will always occupy the first available space starting from the top left. Okay, time to delete our extra cells and get back to our design. Let's put our background color to the grid element. Let's focus our attention to grid layout settings. See these device icons? Our layout tracks are defined for the large breakpoint. But when we click on the second largest breakpoint in the row, it still has the layout which was defined by the template we have dragged into the design at the very beginning. And that's not the layout we are working with anymore. Let us right-click to the extra large breakpoint. And let's click Apply Layout from Excel to All. What we just did was copying our guides or our tracks to all breakpoints. We will see if we are going to have to change this layout, for example on the mobile view, but for now we have the same layout for all breakpoints. So now that we have done that, let's switch down to the large breakpoint and see if things have been improved. Oh no, it's still chaotic. So what the heck has happened now? Let's click our image cell. Well, that's interesting. It has auto placement. So what happens to a cell when it has auto placement? Yep, it moves to the first free track, closest to the top left position. Let us click on the grid element and rename our first cell to image cell and the next cell to text cell. What will happen if I move the text cell to the top? It will switch the position with the image in the preview. It will do that because they are both automatically placed on the grid. So the text element is now at the top and it will occupy the first available position. Okay, let's put it back. So how can we solve this mess we got ourselves in this breakpoint? We will do the same thing we did with the grid itself. Click on the cell and now click on the extra large breakpoint where we have our explicit positions for the cell defined. And you guessed it. Let's apply everything that we have in extra large to all. Boom! Our image is back where it should be. Our text is still automatically positioned, so it is now occupying the top left position where the image was before we explicitly positioned it on the grid. Now click on the text cell and do the same. There you go, the text is back where it should be. Alright, we will check the other breakpoints now. The medium needs fixing, definitely smaller text. The small needs even more fixing. We can make them better. We are going to leave that as is for now and move to the mobile preview. Now this is definitely a chaos. Let's turn the layout preview off for a second. So what would work best on mobile for the image and the text element? I'd definitely say that it would be much better if we had the image on the top and the text on the bottom, or vice versa, depending on what we need. So let's make it happen. Let's turn the layout preview back on. Let's start with the grid layout. Since we want the image on the top and the text below it, we basically need only 2 rows. And since nothing will be to the left and to the right of them, we basically need only 1 column. We will click the gear icon and replace our repeated columns with just a single fraction. We are going to leave our 2 rem paddings. Now to the rows. We will replace our repeated rows with automatic one. I'm going to write auto twice. This way we are going to have 2 cells, one on top of the other that will occupy the exact height of the image and the text. So now it's time to position our cells. So why on earth would we still have so many columns when we have created a layout with only 3? We will click on the text element to find out the answer. You see, it still says that it starts at 6 and it ends at 10. That's despite the fact that we have defined our grid layout. So these additional columns are created automatically because this cell explicitly demands 10 tracks. So let's put the cell where it belongs. We want it to start at track 2 and end at track 3. Since we have a margin and image above, vertically we want it to start at track 3 and end at track 4. This looks better, but there are still extra columns to the right. Let us click on the image element. There we go, it demands to end at track 7. so it automatically creates extra columns. Let's tell it to end at track 3. That's better. We also want the image to vertically start at 2 and end at track 3. Let's turn the preview off. Nice! This is almost what we want on the mobile preview. The last thing that is left here is to go to the Customize settings of the text element, click on Element CSS, and paste a media query that will reduce the font size to 1.5 ms on mobile. That definitely looks better. Let's go back to the desktop size. You know what? What I actually don't like is how this text is lined up with the top of the image. Aesthetically, it would be much nicer if this text was pushed down 2 rems, which is exactly the height of the top margin. Instinctively, we might reach for the text margin or the cell margin settings. But we are inside the CSS grid. We need to look with a new pair of eyes to this situation. Let's go to the grid layout. So what can we do here? Why not add another row that is 2 rems high? Right now we have 2 rems. Then 3 rows repeated. 1, 2, 3. And then again 2 rems. Let's add our second 2 rem row now by duplicating this one. Let's align the text cell with the newly created track. You know what? I will change the width of the image again and align it with line 6. The beauty of the interface is that we can do it as many times as we want, and we can do it quickly. I will move the text element to the left. And now I will make it wider, so it can be less tall. Okay, this looks even better. This solves our text top alignment requirement. But it has also created some problems here. Why is this happening? Let's check out the grid layout again. And click on the Rows template gear icon to better see what is happening. So we have our 2 rems repeated 2 times. Then we are asking the row template to repeat 3 fractions before it creates another 2 rem row, which we are using for the bottom margin. And that's exactly what the layout is trying to do. After the initial 2 rows, it created 3 repeated fractions. The first fraction is this high because of the amount of text in it. We will go to the layout pane and edit the text element. We will take out half of the text. As you can see, our first fraction is now smaller. As a result, the other 2 repeated fractions are smaller too, because they are maintaining the exact height of the first fraction. Let's put the deleted text back. Okay, we will go back to the grid layout settings. Open the gear icon for the rows and replace the whole repeat statement with just 1 fraction. We also have to fix the image cell so it ends at track 4 vertically. Now it has the 2 rem padding below again. This could be the layout we were after. So if this is the layout we are pleased with, we would copy the Excel grid layout over to the other breakpoints. And of course, we have changed the image and the text cell positioning, so we would have to copy that over to the other breakpoints too, except the mobile one. The majority of mistakes and frustrations are coming from the fact that the grid layout and individual cells positions need to be in sync. Also, some people find it easier to fill the empty tracks with absolutely positioned cells and then throw a gap element into them. Unless we need a specific background color in those cells, I think that is really unnecessary. As you can see, if we understand the principles of the CSS grid, we can have our layout with the number of cells that match our number of elements. In this case, just 2. We are not going to fix the breakpoints between Excel and the XS size now, but I'm sure that you know how to do that by now. Also, the following CSS Grid lessons will go deeper into the element settings, and we will learn a few more tricks too. As always, see you in the next movie.